Second method, which is a better method, and if you learned about this, it is actually going to impress your interviewer a lot, because whatever I just discussed can be done in just one line. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. This channel, Data Science, is all about trying to learn various concepts of data science by practicing a lot of questions. This video is in continuation of the series where we're trying to learn Python by solving interview questions from top tech companies like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. If you are preparing for any of these roles, this is a great series to follow and build your concepts. So yeah, let's jump right in. In this video, we are going to solve this question on Strata Scratch regarding Apple product counts. This question has been asked in Google and Apple interviews, and it's a great question if you're preparing for data engineer, data scientist, BI analyst, or ML engineer roles. Okay. The question reads, find the number of Apple product users and the number of total users with a device and group the counts by language. Assume Apple products are only MacBook Pro, iPhone 5s, and iPad Air. Output the language along with the total number of Apple users and the users with any device. Order your results based on the number of total users in descending order. Okay, so we are given two data frames, playbook events and playbook users, and an expected output is a pandas data frame with three different columns: language, number of total Apple users, and number of total users. So, and this is sorted in descending order by number of total users. Okay, let's inquire about both these data frames. So playbook events has 6 different columns. The column that we are interested about is the device, because we need to make sure whether it is an Apple product or not. And secondly, if we inquire about the second data frame, playbook users, again 6 different columns, various user IDs, created at company, etc. And the column that we are mostly interested about in this data frame is language, because for every language we need to count the how many users are Apple users versus total users. Okay, so since we just learned that both of the important columns that we want are in two different data frames, the first thing that we should do is we should merge this data frame. So how can we merge this? If we look at it, our playbook users has user ID, as well as if we look at playbook events, it also has user ID. So we can perform a join on user ID. Now, how are we going to perform a join? Should we do a left join, right join, inner join, outer join, what else? So just think about it. We want for every language how many people are using an iPhone device versus the total users. So if you are using a device but you do not have any information in the playbook users table, that is, you do not have the language information, you are not able to group by the language for that particular row. Similarly, if you flip it around, if you know the language, so user is using in the language certain language, but you do not know the device, again you won't be able to count that person's device. So the best join here in this case would be inner join. That is, the for the user you have the language as well as the device information present. So let's go ahead and perform a join. So let's merge this entire thing. So playbook events dot merge this with playbook users on the column that we decided is user ID. And how are we going to perform the join? Inner. If I go ahead and run this, so this is going to give you all the information. So have the user ID, various events and event name, location, device information, language, etc. Once you have this, then what we need is the primary thing that we want in our output is how many Apple users are present versus how many total users are there. So what we can do is we can make a separate column, whatever we want to call it, let's say Apple product, and say whenever your device is either whatever is given in the question, so either MacBook Pro, iPhone 5s, or iPad Air, then it is an Apple device, else it is not an Apple product. So here another thing that you should keep in mind is here you have a device called iPhone 5. The question says iPhone 5s should be assumed as Apple product, not iPhone 5, right? So I know this is very counterintuitive to think about it, but you have to go by the language of the question. So what we can do is let's save this in a data frame called ds so that it's easier for us and our code is cleaner. Let's make a column called Apple product, right? So let me just write the Apple prod. And then how are we going to perform this calculation? We can use the numpy's where method. Basically check for a particular condition. If that condition is true, assign a value. If that condition is false, assign another value. So here you have to take the device column and basically check the condition that the value in the device column is either MacBook Pro, iPhone 5s, or iPad Air? If yes, you can assign a certain value. If not, you can assign another value. So np dot where, and then what you can do is take the device column and make sure that it is in the list. So either MacBook Pro or iPhone 5s or iPad Air. So if it is in this, so that means if it is equal to true, then you assign the value 1, else you assign the value 0. Okay, let me go ahead and try to get whether this column has been successfully made and correctly made or not. So for example, for this user ID 6991, the device being used is iPhone 5, which is not a Apple product according to the question. So the value should be 0 and we have it as 0. Similarly, for Asus Chromebook, 0. HP Pavilion Desktop, 0. However, this is a MacBook Pro, so it should be 1. So now we know that our assignment is correct. So how when can we calculate for every language how many total Apple product users are there as well as total number of users are there? So here you can take two routes. First thing is you can make two different data frames. The first data frame could be, okay, keep only those rows where Apple product is equal to 1, and then in that case group by the language and count the number of user IDs, and that is going to give you the total number of Apple users. And secondly, what you can do is the data frame that you right now have is for all the users, so you can directly group by the language and count the number of distinct users. That is going to give you the number of total users. Then you can merge the information back into one. That is one way. Second method, which is a better method, and if you learned about this, it is actually going to impress your interviewer a lot, because whatever I discuss right now can be done just using one line of code, which is going to be very impressive. So what we can do is, from the entire data frame DF that we have, what are the actual columns that we want? We want the user ID because obviously we need to count them. Secondly, we want the do you want the device? No. Why? Because we have created a column based on this, whether it is an Apple product or not. So the second column that we want is Apple product. And the third column is language, because obviously we need to group by the language to get for every language total number of Apple users versus total users. So let's keep only those columns which we actually require. So user ID, then Apple product, and then the language column. Let me go ahead and run this. So now we are only left with the important ones. Okay, so now there is a problem with this. Let me just show you to demonstrate the problem. So if I go ahead and sort value, and this is not a part of the solution, but I just want to show you the problem that might be occurring in this, which we are not being able to see right now. So if I sort the values by user ID, you can see, right? So you have multiple rows for certain values where you actually see there is duplication. So there is a user ID 108 where you have three different rows for the same thing, right? It seems like same thing. Let me just try to incorporate the device column here as well. Let's see whether they are using different devices, which is leading to this. So you see, right? So this is a person 108 who is using two different devices, HP Pavilion Desktop, Lenovo ThinkPad, and then there is another HP Pavilion Desktop, and obviously none of them is Apple product, and they are using it in Spanish. Now you might be thinking, why do we have HP Pavilion Desktop twice? Just think about it. We are having a data frame called playbook events where you are basically liking something, right? Engagement, sign up, etc. It is possible, right? On one day they use this to sign up, another day they use this to like something, post something, etc, etc, right? So obviously if you think about it, you need to drop duplicates, right? So that these kind of things are not present, because if you group by the Spanish and if you count the user ID, it is actually going to count it as 3. Obviously, there is only one person who is using two different devices, which both of them are not Apple products, and therefore it should only be counted as 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove the device part and drop duplicates. So now you have various user IDs, the Apple product user or not, and then the different languages. Okay, now once we have this, then what we can do is we can group by the language column. So group by the language column is use the dot aggregate method. So dot aggregate, now we are going to create two columns. Firstly, for number of Apple users. So let's create a column called number of Apple users, which is basically going to take the Apple product column and perform a sum. So take the Apple product column, and if you sum this, so obviously you are going to get you, okay, since we have assigned values once, so if you sum the entire thing, it is going to give you the total number of Apple users. Let me go ahead and write reset index so that we are able to visualize whether we have it. This is not complete yet, but now you have for various languages how many Apple users are there. So for example, English, we have 11, for French 0, 0, right? And so on. Now we also need the number of total users. Okay, let's make another column. So after n Apple users, we also need to make an n total users. And here I use dot sort values only to demonstrate you, right? So we do not need it in this case. It was just for demonstration purposes. Now, number of Apple users. And then secondly, what we want is number of total users is equal to take the user ID column, and perform a count. Now count can be either distinct count or normal count. Here we need to do a distinct count. Why? Let me just demonstrate you. Let me just firstly distinct count, right? Let me go ahead and run this. So now here you are going to have all the values that are same, and I can go ahead and sort values later on, but let me demonstrate you why we are doing an n unique and not simply a count here. Let me remove this part, right? And let's go to drop duplicates. So we drop the duplicates. You might be thinking, right, if we drop the duplicates, why there is a need for a count distinct and not simple count? So if I go ahead and write dot sort values again and by the user ID, if I go ahead and run this, so let's scroll down to this person, right? So this person 251 has been using a device that is not an Apple product and is an Apple product, both in the Spanish language. Now, if you want to count in the Spanish language, if you group by the Spanish and you count this, right? So it is going to count 251 twice, right? Is the person 251 twice? No. Why? Because it is possible that I have two different phones. One a iPhone 5s and another is a Samsung. Both of the devices I am using in Spanish language. So the number of total users in Spanish language, I should be counted only once, not twice. So you see, why do we need a unique count? So yeah, okay. So let me just go back to this. So here, if I just remove all this and paste our original thing, let me go ahead and run this. So this is what we ended up. Now this is not complete yet. I need to order this by total users in descending order. So sort values by number of total users, and ascending should be false because we want it in descending order. So ascending is equal to false. Let me go ahead and run this. So let's see, our output looks exactly like expected output. Let me go ahead and submit it to pass all the test cases. So yeah, everything is green, and this is how we do it. So yes, very tricky question. The first thing that we did was, since the columns that we are interested about is in two different data frames, playbook events and playbook users, so we performed the inner join using the user ID column. Then we need to make sure whether the devices that is being used is an Apple product or not. So we use the np.where method to check whether it was a MacBook Pro, iPhone 5s or iPad Air. If yes, we assigned the value 1, if not, zeros. And then we only kept those columns which we are concerned about. So user ID to count, Apple product to know whether the device was an Apple product or not, and language because we need to group by them. We dropped the duplicates because we saw there is a possibility of duplicates for user ID 108 and similar. And then we grouped by the language, then use the dot aggregate method to create the two columns that is required in our output. And finally, we sorted them. So yeah, this is how we do it. Let me know if there's a better way or more efficient way to solve this question. Let the solution be in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.